Hey,
Hey,
I guess I'm finally getting the hang of this thing. Doesn't take me forever to get on here now.
no, it's all good. It takes time.
Right.
It's interesting every time that we always have something that goes on. So,
Exactly.
but but yeah, well, okay. So now back to present content.
Right.
Nice switch though. It's cool though how every conversation that we've had really kind of leads to the next one. So,
Exactly. So it's like
I,
perfect.
yeah, it's a really great scope for the course.
Mhm.
Um, So that first quote that was in the assignment log really kind of wrecked me in terms of teaching and technology and learning and creating with that. So it was the digital design is neither learning about technology nor learning with technology, but learning creatively and but learning creativity and innovation through technology. And I was like, man, so much of what we do in school is learning through technology. And it's not a bad thing, but we also have to find ways to provide students with the ability to learn learn creativity and innovation, how to be and do those things.
Right. And I feel like technology fosters creativity anyway
Mm-hmm.
because it gives them different ways of using a website. Like we said for Twitter, we use it to just tweet thoughts or retweet things that everybody else said, but you came up with the idea of condensing a paper or explanation to a prompt into 140 characters on Twitter. So
Right.
that it gives it another way to foster creativity. You have to be creative. You have to know what you could take out. You have to know what you could leave in.
Mm-hmm.
I think technology just fosters creativity because it gives you a whole different outlook on education, one, and then
Right.
learning in itself. So.
Well, and the whole concept of learning through technology versus learning with technology is
Mhm.
something that I feel that we've come back to in every single one of our talks. That learning with technology is more kind of that outmoded method of, well, I used the document
Right.
camera to show the
Mhm.
notes for the class today, so
Mhm.
we've learned and we've done it with the technology, but we've not done anything
Mhm.
through the technology.
Right.
So,
Like they have that like starfall.com. It gives you like if you have an interactive smartboard, throwing that up and then using the pen to tap on each word for like
mhm.
kindergarten and pre-K or first grade. For those that's beginning readers, it sounds out the word and then it says the word. That's learning through technology. It's giving them the tools they need to learn how to read. Other than, just throwing it up and me reading it to them, which would be, learning with technology. But Starfall is like because I have my most my experiences with lower elementary. That was one of the websites that I did use a lot, just simply because it helped tremendously with the reading. And then they had like other games on there that students would think were just fun, but they're actually like educational games, like it's telling them to add or it's telling them to read or something like that. But they see it as this is just a race car and we're racing around the track. So it kind of gives them that they're having fun and learning and not even realize that they're learning.
Right, and I think too that I liked how this kind of addresses the idea that some people have that real utilizing technology effectively can't be done in elementary school because
Right.
what can little kids do?
Right.
Is like the common question all the time. Whereas it's like, no, if we set appropriate expectations, these students amaze me
Right.
constantly with what they're able to create with utilizing the technology. So, for example, we have a subscription to Pixie, which is kind of like a digital design software that's at an elementary level. So once at the beginning of the year, we teach students how to how to actually use the software.
Hmm.
And so there's different stickers that they can use, or they can actually draw and create like their own images and then move them around. But at this point of the year, I mean, I have 4 and 5 year olds that are completely proficient with the software of the Pixie software itself. And so they're able to create and design things, and they can use it independently. And so, for example, like in the Writing Center, we have access to 2 of the iPads that have Pixie on it. And so students will create different things like illustrations for stories that they think should be included, and they'll actually, draw out the illustration, and then they'll use their finger to try to write some of the words and things, and then we'll print it off and actually include it like with books and things. So they're creating, utilizing the technology. So they're learning and they're applying that knowledge, and not just, oh, I can tap the home screen on the iPad.
Right. And I feel like we don't give them enough credit. Like even
Mhm.
though they're young, they know a lot. Especially with technology, this world is just straight technology. So, they're learning that stuff early from, watching cartoons on the computer, on TV to playing those specific shows, games on the computer. It's
Yeah.
giving them those tools. They're learning how to maneuver around a website, learning how to click, just simple things. But adding technology in there, they're amped for it. They're excited for stuff like that. Like you bring out a document camera, or you bring out the pen to use for the interactive smartboard, and watch like faces light up.
Hmm.
Even if it's learning, but they're excited to become producers, as you say, not just consumers. So.
Right. Well, and it's. I mean, I look at my nephews, and they're 5 now, but like even since they were born, it's like kids now are just kind of hardwired for
Right.
utilizing technology. It's like they come out
Right.
just knowing, oh, I
Exactly.
know how to swipe. But
Right.
I'll never forget my nephews and their twins and their voice. And I will never forget, they were like 2, 2.5, and I set my phone down, and one of them swiped. And my phone wasn't password protected or anything, so it just opened everything right up. And it's
Right.
like, how do you know that? But they've
Exactly.
seen it enough times, and so they're very capable of manipulating the software, sometimes even better than some of the teachers or instructors are. And so it's like, it's for people that think that elementary students can't master these concepts and
Right.
can't utilize the technology to learn and to create and develop. I think it's kind of ridiculous. It's like I kind of want to say, oh, you don't think they can? Then come in my room and I'll show you pre-K students doing it.
Right.
We just have to give them the opportunity and also the ability to take risks. That's
Mm.
the biggest thing that I find is that students are afraid to take risks, and they're afraid to be different and unique, like especially in elementary school when everyone's just kind of figuring out how we do school.
Right.
And well, is it okay that I have different ideas, or that in art class, everyone's asked to paint a picture of the flower, and everyone paints the same picture that the art teacher did for their model,
Mm.
versus being creative and unique. And that's one thing that I really agree with a lot of the articles, is that technology really provides an open door for students to walk through in terms of displaying their creativity, their uniqueness, their viewpoint, and their voice. And that's something that's really powerful for students to know that their voice can be heard. And
Right.
elementary students have a lot that they want to say too.
Right. Like, my niece is the same way, like about the whole, the phone. That's who was FaceTiming me, by the way, as well. That was my sister. But she, she would, well, when she was younger, she's 8 now. But when she was younger, she would see somebody's phone and do the whole, swipe it, whether it had a code on it or not. She was trying to figure it out,
Figure it
you
out.
know,
Yeah.
type it, and then she knew her numbers and everything. So she was figuring out what could go with, whoever's phone that she had. And I think all of this, goes right into the second statement. Many of these concepts may seem a little too advanced for elementary school, but these
Right.
kids are soaking it in. Like they know more than we give them, credit for. And then, like I said before, technology is just a big thing. It's never ending. You can always learn something new, every day, daily. Um, so yeah, I think, is these it may seem complicated, but that's because we're seeing them as they're 4, they're 5. What could they possibly know? Rather than they're students, so they're absorbing information daily, whether it comes from home, church, school, the gym. They're constantly listening, and they're constantly, observing, because that's what a lot of kids do. They observe and then they repeat. Those
Right.
they shouldn't repeat. They observe and they repeat. So they are learning constantly throughout the day, at home,
Hmm.
throughout the night, however it may be. So I think that we definitely diminish their credit just because they're kids.
Right. It definitely comes down to a mindset view too, because it's this that statement, you know, um, the first part of it is that many of these concepts may seem a little too advanced for elementary school. That's a
Mhm.
deficit mindset, and unfortunately, it's a mindset that a lot of instructors
A lot.
operate out of.
Hmm.
Not just educators, but a lot of adults. Anytime it
Hmm.
comes to kids, it seems like there's this just, oh, they're just kids. They can't really affect
Right.
change, or they can't really do this, or they can't. I mean, kids maybe, okay, yeah, they can text on the cell phone, but can they create anything? No, they're just kids. When Whereas really, in all reality, we need to have this growth mindset and really see students as sources of limitless potential who are coming up in a technological age, who will encounter more technology over the course of their whole lives than we will. You
Hmm.
know?
And that, like,
Um,
there's this, it's just a whole new generation, like that. Like, I remember I've always wanted to be a teacher my whole life, but when I got to like college and I did my undergrad in North Carolina, so Common Core was already implemented down there when I started doing my observation and all of that. And then some of my friends would be like, "You want to teach, and you're going to be with kindergarten. You're going to take naps. You're going to teach them how to color and stuff like that." And I was like, "This is a whole new, this is a whole new world, basically. You know what kindergarten was when we were in kindergarten, and we're
right.
young, is a whole different thing than it is now. You know, we're teaching
Oh
letters,
yeah.
we're teaching writing, we're teaching math, we're teaching beyond just going to sleep. Like, they didn't even have naps when I was student teacher down south, so naps wasn't even a thing. Um, so I'm just like, it just changes. So what I think some people still have that mindset of kids know nothing what it was back then. You know, they slept, they got up, they ate, they may have drawn, colored, learned some letters, and then that was it. Like, no, students are writing multiple sentences in kindergarten. They're identifying numbers, they're adding, they're subtracting. You know, it goes beyond just that baseline level. Like, what y'all think is in kindergarten is daycare now. Like, that's what students
Right.
know already.
Well, and I have a very similar viewpoint because, like I said, I teach pre-kindergarten, and so a lot of sorry, a lot of what we do, people say is, oh, well, you play all day, and my
Hmm.
students do take a nap, but they're four, and if they
Right,
didn't take a nap, it
right.
gets
They need
ugly
to
pretty
act.
fast.
Right.
But they do real learning, and they can create. Like I said, I mean, we're working right now on developing like a podcast within a closed system where
Hmm.
students are going to have to share like stuff that they've been researching in small groups. And it's things that they've had to create, and they get to design it all as far as what they're going to say and how they're going to do it. I've got one group that wants to kind of like act it out like they're actually the animals that they've learned about, and another group wants to make a song and actually sing it, and they want music accompaniment and all this crazy stuff.
Hmm.
But they're developing and creating, and they're
Right.
four. And if they can do this in, with the teacher as a facilitator, it has to be adults have to let go of the control and
Right.
let the students kind of pick up some of it. But if they're doing this at four, my gracious, what are they going to be doing at
Right.
14? Let alone
Right.
at 24 or
Mhm.
34. It's powerful to think about what they could do. But we first have to see them as capable of not only understanding the content, but utilizing the digital tools that are available to them
Right. Like,
effectively.
I work with behaviors at my job, and I work with pre-K through fifth grade. And then when, like, there's some students that I see on a daily basis that I've had that rapport with. See them in the morning and I see them in the afternoon. And I know that, like, there's this one third grader. I noticed that he likes to be like the leader, or he likes to help.
Mhm.
Just that in class, it may not seem as helpful. It may seem, the complete opposite. He just has to work
Right.
with his words and his actions and stuff. So when I had him in there with one of the second graders, um, the second grader couldn't figure out how to do something on the computer, how to get to a specific spot. So I let him come in, the third grader come in and help him out. And you just gotta give them that confidence, and show
Mhm.
them that you trust them to help. So I was like, can you help him out? And he was able to sit there. He helped him out. He didn't do it for him. He instructed him in ways where he can do it himself. When he comes back, he knows how to do it. So, you just have to give them that little bit of confidence, show them that you
Right.
trust them, show them that you believe in them. I see you can help them, so I'm not going to step in and do it. I'm going to let you try to do it. I'm here if you need me, but I'm not going
Right.
to overstep. Just give them that little bit of confidence, and it goes a long way.
And that kind of directly addresses that next point about educators' assumptions being tempered, and it kind of goes right along with our entire
Mhm.
conversation that we're having, you know, is that students are very capable. We just have to be able to allow them to know that they are safe and that they can
Right.
take risks, and that sometimes when you take risks, you fail, and failing is not a bad thing. That when you fail, it just gives you another opportunity to try something differently, you know?
Mhm.
And that failure is part of what happens when you're being a creator and an innovator. If you just go and do everything that's already been done, then you know the pathway to take, and your risk is limited and your chance of failure is limited. But when you're embarking on new endeavors and you're creating and innovating and exploring your passion and the things that you are interested in doing, then there's some risk there, and you're going to fail at some point. Everybody fails with something at some point. And being able to know how to take risk, but also adapt to failure is
Mhm.
critical. Because failure, a lot of students, when they encounter failure in school, whether it's in content, regardless of the content, a lot of times they shut down.
Mhm.
And so teaching them how to process the failure, that it's just another opportunity to try and maybe to make some different choices and see how that affects the outcome, and to
Right.
look through it through that lens is really powerful. And I think when teachers and educators and administrators really start seeing that viewpoint, and that things will start to shift.
And I feel like these assumptions are just pure crazy simply because technology wise, a lot of them
Mm-hmm.
come in learning way more, than we could ever think, especially those seasoned educators that do not know, they still have a flip phone that doesn't do, internet or, doesn't even take a picture. So,
Right.
they come in knowing more than you think, and they know more than you. So I just think that the assumptions are just really crazy. Like my educational philosophy is that everybody brings something to the table, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
me, it's you, it's one of the 4 year olds, one of the 5 year olds. Everybody brings something to the table. They can learn from me just as they can learn from one another. Um, so I think assumptions are just like everybody can do something. I think that's what we
Yeah.
have to keep in mind. Everybody is capable of doing whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you brought up a really good point too, in that educators that aren't as comfortable utilizing the technology because that's not been their skill set, or it's just not been what they've been about. And
Right.
sometimes it's maybe not so much with elementary students, but as you go into the upper grades, teachers can feel threatened when students know more about
Hmm.
the subject area than they do. And so,
Right.
how do a lot of adults act when threatened? Is that they shut down, or or they say, well, you can't do this because you're not capable of doing it, or they out of fear of being called out on something they don't know how to use, they don't utilize it. And that's where it
Right.
kind of comes back to making sure that we're providing adequate PD. And it might not be professional development across the board, because not everybody needs the same thing. And if we're going to employ that
Exactly.
method with our students, then we have to do that same thing with our staff. And so my needs, as far as learning with technology and learning through technology and being able to instruct appropriately, are going to be different from yours, and they're going to be different from
Hmm.
every other instructor in my building.
I
And
think.
so we have to find ways to provide
Mhm.
for professional development to be provided individually.
Right. Like like what you just said was like the icing on the cake because I feel like they tell us make sure we adhere to all learning styles, but then you go
Right.
into professional development. It's like I heard this 18 times already, but the person here may be new and this is their first and they haven't heard it before. But you have to find that just like we have to incorporate everybody in our lessons. You need to incorporate
Right.
everybody in your lessons, as well for professional
Right.
development as adults. You know, like you said, like I'm sure you know more of technology than I do. So we don't need to be in the same, professional development simply because
Right.
you may have heard of things over and over before,
Right.
and this could be all new to me. So I do feel like they need to, you know,
Mhm.
different knowledge abilities and all that stuff. They need to adhere to everything.
Oh yeah, I very much agree, and it's getting that information passed up the chain of command. I think that becomes the next critical part. Is that if we're gonna say that what Johnny needs isn't what Sally needs, then you have to say what Miss Monroe needs is not what
Right.
Miss Jones needs. You know,
Hmm.
and so being able to do that, and some of that means that teachers kind of have to do some PD on their own time. And I
Right.
know that we like to safeguard our own time because we're asked to do a lot on our own time.
Mhm.
But I think sometimes in order to be a teacher, you're signing on to being a lifelong learner, and sometimes it's learning things that are hard or difficult to you or a challenge. And I look at the professional communities that I'm in the research and things, in the journals and things that I receive in the mail and I view electronically, and the amount of time that I spend reading those things, but then it's like if it's so that I stay current on my practice. And if I'm willing
Hmm.
to stay current on my practice in reading and mathematics and science and STEM,
Right.
then I also need to stay current on my practices with technology,
Right.
and appropriate use, but also understanding the different platforms that are available so that students can be producers and that they can be creative and they can develop things.
Right. Um, and then the next point, when should an educator's assumptions be tempered so that students can attempt to do complex learning activities? I think that's just going along with believing that they can do anything that they, put their mind to.
Yeah.
Every day I see some students, their potential, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not pushing to get to exactly where they need to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those assumptions, like, I know you can do this. This is easy for you. Simple stuff like that. That gives them the confidence and the push that they need to be like, okay, I can really do this. So let me focus and let me actually, um, produce what needs to be produced. Like I was in one of the kindergarten classes with a student, and I've seen him write before. Like he can write sentences, which are legible and you can understand what he's saying, even though the word may not be spelled right.
Right.
Um, but he gets a little apprehensive. Like he'll say, "Oh, I don't know how to write that," or "I don't know how to do that." All you have to do is sound it out, tap it out, and he's still, really apprehensive to do it. But
Right.
give him that little push. I'm like, "I know you can do this. I've seen you do this before." And then it was just like a light bulb flipped on, and he was, ready to try it, even if he couldn't,
Mm-hmm.
get it all together. So I feel like those anytime positive assumptions can be, implemented into anything, as long as they're positive.
Right. And I would say too that because there's days and there's students and where it might be difficult to find something positive just to say to student. Um,
Right.
just being honest, like
Right.
that. And I mean, I've in one of my internships, I experienced that with a teacher who there was just one student in the room who their personalities just did not meld, and
Mhm.
so it just was not good for that student. And
Mhm.
so like being able to put aside your personal feelings
Right.
so that you can professionally instruct. I mean, our job as educators is to be the light bearers, is to be the spurs on of hope, and belief that our students can do and accomplish all things. And if they need, some students will need more scaffolding than others, and
Right.
some students will need less scaffolding. And it's our job to push them to achieve, even when they don't think they can. Like one of my favorite examples of this. It's actually like a sports movie. I think it's like Facing the Giants or something.
Mhm.
But there's this student it's a football like metaphor. But there's like a captain of the team and he's like, "Man, coach, we can't do that." And so the coach like blindfolds him and has him do the drill. And the whole way the kid's like, "Oh, I can't. There's no way that I could do this for like 100 yards." Um, and the coach blindfolds him and he goes with him the whole drill and says, "You can do it in like the last 20 yards, I need you to push through now. Like, you can do this. And then at the end, before he lets him take off the blindfold, he asks the kid, now, how far do you think he's gone? And the kid was like 40 yards. And he has him take off the blindfold, and he's in the opposite end zone. You know, so sometimes students don't know how far they can get, or they believe, oh, well, I can't do that. I don't understand this. I don't know how to use this technology. I can't develop anything new. I don't have any new ideas, you know. Or it's our job to push them on to say, yes, you do. You have potential in this, and you can do it. You can create. You can take risks. You can have your voice be heard. Even if that voice is different from my voice, even if your opinions are not my opinions.
Right, like they just need that encouragement, you know, that positive, that push. Like I have one student, like just to keep it honest, the beginning of the year, he was a terror. Like he's in second grade, but he was kicked out of pre-K. I think he was suspended from first grade like 2 or 3 times. Like he's just one of those. Like he's ran out of the office. He's trying to run out of the building. You know, he was just one of those students. But since I've become like a mentor towards him, like he's one of the ones that I have like in the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. And of course I see him like during lunch. But he's like done a huge turnaround. And I was just thinking about it today, like I don't think I've told him how proud I was of him, how he's, you know, come a long way. Like it's been months and he hasn't gotten into any trouble. You know, so I was just thinking about this morning. Like I was like, have I told him that I was proud of him? Like I need to do this so we can keep making progress rather than, you know, going back down. So I think that positive, you know, reinforcement that, you know, letting them know you can do this or you have done this and I'm so proud of how far you've come, it pushes them to do greater too. So I think positivity, positive assumptions in any aspect, even with me, you know, tell me something positive. That's an assumption, and I love it. Like, you know, even telling me that I can do this. Like we're in this class. I finished my master's degree in May, and I've just felt like, you know, it's only been a year and a half, but I feel like I've been here for like 4 years. You know, it's been like a crazy ride, in this last year. Fall 14 and spring 15 has just been like real, you know, heavy, and I just felt like it's been a lot. But, you know, I've had people like, you know, you're almost to the finish line. You can do this. Keep going. If you give up now, then it's like you did all this work for no reason. So even the positive assumption to adults, it pushes me to be like, okay, I can keep going. There's 70-something days to graduation. I can make this. So, you know, I think positive assumptions around just anybody, it can make their day, and it can push them to be who they didn't even know that they could be as well.
Well, and I think too, like to address this in a different way, is that sometimes with these projects and these learning activities, with them being so complex and critical, it's not just going to be what we learn in one day in one class period. We're talking about multiple day, over the course of time projects. And some educators are afraid of this, and some administrators don't like it. They like to be able to know, walk in your room and you're doing A on Monday, B on Tuesday, you know, and so it's kind of a culture shift that has to happen too, with understanding that if we're requiring complex activities, that it's going to take multiple days of instruction, and that is not a bad thing. That is okay. And then it's also going to take collaboration with their peers and different things, you know. So, sorry. My dog was going crazy. Sorry. But
yeah, everybody learns at, you know, different levels, different pace. So, you know, you can't expect it done in one day or 1 week because, you know, maybe someone has more learning disabilities in one class than another class. You know, you can't compare class from A to class from B because everybody's different in their own ways.
Right. Well, and too, like even if we were to compare it to this class, you know, if you had asked us to do a Google Hangout the first week, how long did it take us to get started? Versus, you know, this time getting it up, getting it going, and things like that. So it's a pretty steep learning curve when it comes to technology, you know, and so sometimes even just to provide extra time for students to become familiar with the platform that you're using prior to when the timeline for the project begins itself. So, but I think too, and we kind of addressed this earlier, so the next kind of quote was because some students are eager to conform or afraid to fail if they try something different. They start tentatively making a project similar to the one demonstrated in class. And so, and that's something that the articles touched on too, is that even if students do start that way, encouraging them to take risks and say, oh, you did a great job. Now, if we went back and did it again, what would you change? How could you change it? And having them, just like with writing, you know, when we teach writing, we teach that after you write your first draft, you review, you peer edit, and then you go back and you write another draft. And
Right.
so the same way with technology, okay, you did it and you did a great job, and I love how you did this. But how can we go back and make it better? How can we go back and make it more you? How can we go back and make it so that we hear more of your voice?
Right.
You
Like,
know?
you know, student teaching kindergarten, when you put something up, you immediately, you model it, you have them, look so they know what to do, and then you erase it because
Right.
if you don't erase it,
They're
what you
gonna do
put on the board is going to be on the paper. Um,
it.
so I think they just need, they just need that confidence. Like one of the articles were about expression.
Right.
They're doing like free will writing where you can write about whatever you want to write about. You don't have to use my example on the board. Show me you. You want to write about Spider-Man. You want to write about Princess Anna. Like, you know what I'm saying? You can write about whoever you want to write about.
Right.
You have to put yourself in the writing. Be you. Be confident about your work, um, because we're all different. So you can't expect
And
everybody to have the same outcome, the same exact learning
and
ways of
that's
learning.
right. And that's one area, like when it was talking about in the fostering creativity and innovation, that article, it
Hmm.
was talking about how students in digital art classes, or when they're using digital design to create and develop things, is that they kind of relax once they realize that the undo button works, and then if I
Right.
make a mistake, I can go back. Whereas,
Right.
like if I was taking a design class, with like paper and pencil or
Mhm.
paint or things.
Right.
Princess, I'm sorry, it's the dog. Um,
Fine.
sorry, she's. Mm. Um, no words. But what I was saying was that, like if they were taking a design class where they're actually painting or something, and they make a mistake, and then you have to scrape down the entire canvas to
Right.
start over.
Mhm.
Whereas technology is actually the perfect platform for learning how to take risks and how to develop and create and reimagine things and experiment with things
Right.
and do it over and over again.
Right. Like paper, pencil, or like the example you used, sculpting. It's discouraging to have to start completely over for one tedious, little mistake. But
Right.
online, you can just scrape out what you don't need or whatever you messed up and continue going rather than
Right.
having start all over from the beginning, which can be like, okay, now I have to start all over. It's not even worth doing, which goes into the second,
Right.
like why are students afraid to fail? They're
Right.
afraid to fail because like of having to start over,
Mhm.
um, or being talked about, or just that voice. You don't want to say something that you're the only one that believes. So you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like the whole class believes one way, and then I come up like, well, I don't really, think that works, and then it's just kind of
Mhm.
like I don't want to say anything to out myself, so I'm gonna keep
Right.
myself. I'm keep my ideas, my feelings to myself, and it's like failure is seen as such a negative, but we all fail at one point. We're humans, we make
Right.
mistakes. Failure could be a good thing because failure teaches you that you don't win them all. Failure teaches you that, it's okay to start over. Failure teaches you that, it's okay to make mistakes. So failure, it's needed too because of especially for those that, if I'm feeling that I know everything about technology and then you bring me something that I have no idea what you're talking about, it's seen as a fail, but it brings me back down to realizing that, we're all human. We don't know everything, we're learning every day.
Well, and that's like sometimes through failure is that's where you learn where the error is so you can correct it so that you can create. Like
Right.
I think about we just did this bridge making lesson with my students, and so they had a lot of different like blocks and different like weights of paper that they
Mhm.
could try to make a bridge, and it had to the whole point of it was it had to hold this one really heavy like metal dump truck that we have.
Mhm.
And they got to rebuild the bridge as many times as necessary within the time frame that we had allotted, in order to hold up the dump truck.
Mhm.
And it like the first time that the students failed, oh it was like the end of the world. They're like, it didn't hold. We're done.
Right.
And sometimes you have
Mhm.
that reaction, but then
Mhm.
sometimes the best learning takes place after
After failure.
failure,
Mhm.
because it's like, okay, but wait, hold on. Why didn't it work? Let's think about
Right.
this. And then
Mhm.
for like that group, they had picked like tissue paper to hold up this big chunky metal die cast dump truck, and the tissue paper just was not going to hold. So no
Right.
matter how many layers of tissue paper they put,
Right.
it wasn't going to hold. But being able to posit questions to them and say, well, why didn't it work?
Mhm.
And for them to stop and think, like, instead of having this big meltdown reaction of, it didn't work, I failed, I'm done, I'm going to go over there and do
Right.
something else now, instead of and learning how to process it and say, wait, it didn't work because the paper didn't hold it, so the paper wasn't strong enough, so we need a stronger paper. And seeing
Mhm.
them go through that process, and then they tried again and it failed again, and but by the end of it they figured it out, you know.
Right.
And that's one thing too, like that was a hands-on situation, but so many times, like I think about like Photoshop or different photo editors, even like simple apps that you have on like your phone or your tablet, being able to take an image and to change the color,
Right.
of the image, or change the of course I can't think of like the word that I'm looking for, but to put it in different lenses and things to see what it would look like with different variations, and
Mhm.
to say, oh, that looks terrible. Hold on, let me do
Right.
this again. You know.
Right. Like
um,
it, even with my position with behaviors, there was a fifth grader that he had got into some previous trouble, was suspended, and the principal and the vice principal came to me, was like, can you work with him, kind of an all day thing.
right.
So I had him for like 2 days, but at the end of the second day he reverted back, um and ended up getting in trouble again and was suspended. So I sat there and I failed. I was distraught because it was the first time, working here, that I've implemented ideas and implemented, different various activities and everything like that. And it didn't work, clearly, because he turned around and did the same exact thing that he wasn't supposed to do. So, and I was talking to some of my coworkers and I was just like, I felt defeated because I'm just like, and I'm being defeated by a 9-year old. Like, this is not okay. I felt like I failed and they were just like, everything that you do is not going to work. You
Right.
know, some students already have that mindset where I'm going to do whatever I want to do, and that's just it. Nobody can help them but themselves. They have to want to change for themselves. So, it took like
Right.
3 or 4 people coming to me like, you can't win them all. It's okay to fail. Um, because I was just like really like, okay, so it was really bothering me. But it's the same as students. If I'm sitting here like I felt defeated because I failed and what I did didn't work, imagine how a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a teenager, even at that, imagine how they would feel if they felt like, they failed or whatever the case may be.
Right. Well, and that's like one of the things that I come back to a lot of times with my students, because whether they like sports or whatever else, there's always really great failure stories and overcoming what
Right.
hold on, overcoming failure
Hmm.
stories. Whether you look at like Michael Jordan, who and just in some of the things that he was cut from before he like in I think it was like ninth grade basketball, like he didn't make the
Right.
team, and then look who Michael
Look
Jordan
at
becomes.
it.
Or how many times with creating the light bulb, how many times it did not work because of the little tiny filament that's in the light bulb, and how many different trials and experiments they had to go through before they got the right one. You know, so sometimes saying, hey, you are not the first person to experience failure, and look at all of these people that have overcome failures. And another thing to me, like, because sometimes, you know, like teachers, like in educators, we're not perfect, and so like we make mistakes, and sometimes I plan to intentionally make mistakes because it's nice, you know, think aloud, it's a nice learning tool. But other times, you know, you really make a mistake, you know, you pull out the wrong book, or you know, you start teaching one thing and then you kind of flip, and taking those moments, some teachers really try to like cover those up, like, oh my gosh, the kids know that I just messed up, like cover it up. Whereas and that leads to the I'm not going to take risks. I'm not going to, like, failure's not a cool thing. Whereas instead, like, when I fail, I admit it to my kids. Like, I was writing the morning message and I wrote a word completely the wrong way, like just jacked it up. And one of my students called me out on it. I mean, I have this one kid who was reading at like a 3rd grade reading level in pre-K, and she's calling me out on it. And she's like, oh, Miss Monroe, I think. And I look at it and I'm like, and there's 2 options. I can either say, well, I meant to do that, but I didn't. Or I can just say, oh, you know what? I did. And can you help me figure it out? And then we went through the word together, and we used our sounds to figure out the word. But in that moment, in that little tiny thing, that was a failure. Mm-hmm. And I could either like explode from it and be like, ooh, hold on, kid, you didn't see me fail. Let me erase that real quick. Or we can own up to it and say, you know what? We failed at things too. Mm-hmm. You know? And you have 2 choices. You can fail and just let it go and be grumpy all day, or how do we move through it? Because this isn't going to be the only time in life that you fail.
Right.
And I happen again.
It leads to self-reflection, what we talked about before. You know, why didn't it work? You know, what happened that whatever I did, I failed. You know, what did I miss? What could I have done better? You know, I think it leads to that kind of self-reflection as well. You know, going back to, you know, what we said before, you know, thinking about what you did, what can you do to make it better, you know, or, you know.
Problem solving, which is necessary.
Right. What can teachers do to avoid creating students are afraid to fail?
I think we've kind of addressed that in just providing them opportunities to engage with it. I'm gonna go away from the screen for just a second because my cord has come unplugged, and if I don't,
I need to get my charger, so we're on the same page.
Okay. And that would be a moment of failure.
Right.
So next time, we will make sure that we are plugged in.
Right.
Oh.
My computer's fully charged. Like, it was sitting here on 5%. I'm like, okay, I need to get a charger.
And it's like, I checked it before we got started, and I'm like, oh, no, we'll be fine. Nope.
Yeah. Right.
And you know how it goes magically from, like, you have 5% to now, like, within 30 seconds, you're dead. Like, wait, hold on.
Right.
I started with 37%, and so that 5% just magically goes fast.
Exactly.
But I think that we kind of have addressed some of that, you know, what can teachers do to avoid creating students that are afraid to fail, and some of it is providing them opportunities to engage in failure. Because when you experiment, the nature of experimenting and creating is things fail. Things don't always work out as they plan. And sometimes when things fail, you actually get a cooler creation or something you discover something new. Like,
Right.
failure doesn't always lead to crap, I have to start over. Sometimes it is, wow, look what came out of failure.
Mhm.
This was designed, and that's even cooler than what I was originally going for.
Right. And like when they just see it, like you say, sometimes you might do a mistake on purpose just to see if they can catch it, or just see, we all make mistakes, we all fail, but it's about getting back up and it's about trying again, and not just feeling defeated, but you keep going on.
Right.
And it says, what role does technology have in a process? And I just feel like, technology fails daily. One day it'll work, the next day it might not work. One day,
Right.
the Wi-Fi might not be connected. You can't get on the internet, or the website may be down. So technology
Right.
teaches us failure on a daily
Well,
basis. Just like with the computer, if it would have died at 5%, that's giving up on me. You know what I'm saying? So, I think it teaches them exactly what we're talking about. Period.
right. Exactly. Um, And so then, like, the next question is, what role does technology have in that process? And I mean, and that's what you just addressed. But I
Hmm.
think too, in providing them access to different platforms that they don't always have to create through what they're comfortable with,
Right.
too. But also to take to try new platforms, to try new things,
Hmm.
to try a different way for their voice to be heard. So, for example, if you, I'm very much, when I interned with fourth and fifth grade in my internship in college, I very much was one of those open, like, here's your list of 5 or 10 different ways that you can complete this assignment.
Right.
You know, like, you have to pick one of them, but
Hmm.
here's all these options. And so, um, within that, hold on a second, excuse me for just a second. Um, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully you didn't hear me before. Um, the volume in the background got a little loud. um, but what was I saying? Um,
The fourth and fifth grade.
Oh, fourth and fifth grade, right? Giving them the big assignment list of options. And so then, if you're noticing, for example, if like one of the options is that you can give a podcast or that you can create, create through like a digital art platform, create your presentation. If you notice that a student is only utilizing one of those ways, to encourage them to try a different platform or a different type of technology, you know?
Right. And like these technology courses that I've been taking as well, they've introduced me to a lot of things that I didn't know about, such as Google Hangouts.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even have a Google account, so I didn't know these exist, especially where you can record it and
Yeah,
it'll be on YouTube, or something like that. So I was just like, blowing my mind. I just don't know, and I thought that I was a tech savvy person, but then I'm like,
right. One that's like, I've used Google Hangouts before for like conference calls, but I had no clue that you could record them. And
hmm.
so, and that, I mean, for these ones, we have to have them on, like, they have to be public. But other ones, you could make it private and you could share the link, you know, to other users. So if you wanted to use it for your class, or um, you know, or even if you wanted to do a live hangout with, say, you were learning about dinosaurs and you had
Hmm.
you knew of a paleontologist that was willing to
Right.
um, join Google Hangout for 5 minutes to talk with your kids, and your students could
Hmm.
actually see somebody that that does this. It also opens a window to talk with students in different schools around the world, like
Right.
that global perspective. It is, or even as just educators, it opens up an entirely different network. To think
Hmm.
that you could video call or like video conference people from around the world at the
Right.
same time,
Hmm.
through this through Google Hangouts.
Right.
Like, the potential is untapped.
Hmm.
It's limitless. The only limits are what we put on it, and that's why I think creativity and innovation in this time period is so important, because we can't just continue to do everything that's already been done. We have to continue to push push the envelope, and to see what else can be done that's different and new, and push our students even more so than ourselves as educators. We have to push our students to, okay, that's great that you did that, but what else can we do with this platform? What else can be done? How else can your voice be heard?
Right. And what you said goes exactly into the next question about, what lesson do you take away from the fostering creativity? And I
Right.
took just that it can be used for various, res- used in various ways. It goes beyond just, using it just for art or using paint just to, create a little picture or something like that. You can use it for a lot of different ways for a lot of various subjects, at the collegiate level, at elementary level, I
Mhm.
just took away that it has a whole lot of, open doors. And like you said, it just keeps growing, you learn something new every time you get on it.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's like one of the quotes for me was on it's on page 27, and it's in the like under the heading of looking ahead, and it says, however, to ensure that our students opt for those high school AP science courses or choose STEM majors in college, we must catch them young and get them excited about technology in elementary school. And like that's something that I want to scream from the rafters of the school buildings and say, we have to start now. Like it's great that we do these hands-on STEM experiments and things like that, but there's so much more that we can access
Hmm.
through the technology and with technology and utilizing the technology, to produce. Um, and it has to, and I love, sorry, the next sentence too. This was like the favorite part of this article, because it was like, and we must challenge these students with real technology classes, not just teach drag and drop and
Hmm.
template driven presentation tools, because so much of a lot of, I found that a lot of the younger, like early elementary or early childhood programs or softwares initially when I first started teaching were more just about move the mouse, click, or move the mouse, click, and drag something to somewhere else, where it was literally you were just manipulating things on the screen by moving them back and forth.
Hmm.
Or, you had to pick out the right one and drag it down to the box. And that's
Right.
great, but there's so much more that can be done.
Right. And
So,
students are, real impressionable at a young age too.
mm-hmm.
So you can give them a box and they'll do the inevitable with it. Like, they'll
Right.
create a rocket ship, they'll make a dress, they'll make a spaceship, they'll make, a boat, they'll take it and do things with it that we wouldn't have even thought of.
Right.
And one of the statements that I like was on page 27, and it said a digital design program in elementary school shows students that learning technology is both relevant and exciting,
Mm-hmm.
and inspires and
Exactly.
sets the stage for future exploration of technology. And I just feel like relevant is key, just simply because nobody wants something that's 80 years old or something that's real old and it doesn't really have anything to do with who I am today and what I want to be in the future. It
Right.
allows them technology is just it's going to be everywhere. It's going to be around forever. It'll never die. So it gives them that relevant, and then it's also exciting. You can use games, interactively, and they actually become a part of their own learning. So that
Right.
was one of the key points that I've taken from it as well too. It's just relevant and exciting, which I feel learning should be about. Relevant and exciting. Nobody
Right.
wants to learn something that they're never going to use again. Though sometimes we do. But nobody wants to learn
Right.
something that they wouldn't put into practice on an everyday basis or at any point in their lives besides just school.
Right. There's just so much. All of these articles have been great. But then looking too at the other article, helping students express their passion, like
Hmm.
this was really cool to kind of see that other end of the spectrum. The students in secondary education, as they're getting ready to engage, um, in the real world as like adult members of society, not full members of society, because kids are full members too. But looking at some of the comments from the students on pages 12 and 13, where it's that section of changing lives around the world, and truly our most valuable asset, our most untapped resource on this planet is our children.
Right.
And the ideas that they have within them, and I feel like so many kids in this generation of kids coming up through school right now, they are so passionate about the things that are wrong. Right. And about having their voice be heard. That so what if I'm a kid, I have something to say, and adults, right. If you're not going to do something about it, guess what? I'm going to step up, and I'm a 10-year-old, and I'm going to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not going to make a change, I'm going to make the change. Then that's what I hear when I look at some of these, the students from Newcomers High School created No More Silence, a video about the domestic abuse of undocumented immigrants. Like, how powerful is that? Like, mm-hmm. You're taking the technology and you're utilizing outside of the classroom. That students can create these amazing projects that meet content standards for instruction, but more than that, are making a difference in people's lives. That are real, that are authentic and engaging.
Right, and like just the program itself that they had, the Adobe program, which was
right.
An education-based initiative that teaches undeserved kids aged 13 to 18 how to use digital media to comment on their world, share ideas, and take action on the social issues that are important to them. And the passion of the program itself was just to actively engage students in education through digital technology. So it was just like perfect, and it gives the students a voice, those who are, shy, or those who don't want to speak out in public, who just aren't public speakers. It gives them a chance to sit behind a computer and say exactly what they need to say without mm-hmm. putting their face on it or without putting their name on it. Mm-hmm. So it gives students a voice, which, like you said, is a goal to them. Like, if they hear me and they actually listen and take in what I say, I've won. They disagree or they don't agree with it. They heard me. I was able to speak my piece. They came out on top. So I think that was one of the major things. Just that the program, it was all about engagement, which is mm-hmm. key with digital technology. And then it was engaging in their own education with digital media technology. So it just all came back around together.
Yep. Well, and like the whole, like you're saying, all of the students or kids' quotes, like those quotes about the kids, it all came back to that because of the access to utilizing technology to be producers, to create and innovate, mm-hmm. and to be allowed to utilize the technology to express the things that they're passionate about, those things were a catalyst for change. And it opened the doors for their future. That's what it says. That's what the one from the high school students in Redwood City, that ends with the quote, "Once it was out there, it opened up our futures." And that's what all of this has the capability to do, is to provide even more avenues for our students who are children now, but who will one day be the adults that are leading society. And even now as children, that they have things that they want to stand up against, and they want their voices heard. I think about I follow I'm Kid President, mm-hmm. On social media and different things, and his book and things, and you look at the impact that one kid has had, the conversations that he's had with people of power around mm-hmm. the globe, and it's powerful, and one kid can be a catalyst for change. Period. Right. And so it's looking at all these things, is that if we can just find ways, and Adobe's not the only mm-hmm. One that has things out there, so it's also being crafty as an educator and figuring out where there's opportunities, even if it means that you have to write grants or proposals
Right.
and finding ways to engage with corporations and companies to get access for students.
Hmm. And that's what I'm saying. It gives them that voice. Like we can have the next
Mhm.
president sit in our class. We can have the next
Right.
Bill Gates. The next big thing in our classroom. But their voice wants to be heard. Has to be heard. They may be one of the ones that are shy. So the program gives them that confidence, which can lead to them actually coming out and being able to talk themselves, um, to defend themselves and all of that. So I think we need to listen and really hear because everybody wants to be heard.
Oh yeah.
From 2 years old to 85 years old. We all want to be heard. We all want our point to come across, and we just can't take that away from them either. We have to let everybody be heard too.
Oh yeah, very very much so. I mean, everyone's voice is different, and everybody is saying something different with their voice, and
Right.
every message is important, you
Hmm.
know. And so it's like all of those things that we have to be aware of and cognizant of as educators, but we also have to um, push our students to making their voice
Hmm.
be heard, and that it's okay, and to find the things that they're passionate about, and helping them through the process of how can we get this message out. This is the
Right.
message that you have, so how do we tell people about it? What can you do? What platform can you use? Maybe it'll be social media, or maybe it'll be through podcasts. Maybe it'll be through developing ridiculously amazing artwork through digital
Mhm.
platforms, that tell a story, you know.
Exactly.
And all of those things are going to come back and be utilized when you're looking for jobs, and following your passions and your calling as an adult, when you have to get a job,
Right.
and to be able to go into something every day that is a passion versus just a job that you have to have in order to put food on the table. Like being able to follow those dreams and those passions, and being able to develop them in our students at a young age is so powerful. Like I mean, because I teach in an underprivileged school. We have a lot of diversity in our school, and one of the things that when we talk about it throughout the year. What are you going to be when you grow up? What are you going to do?
Hmm.
Who are you going to be? And a lot of at the beginning of the year, everybody wants to be a superhero and a princess, and those are
Right.
great. Those are some great ambitions. Go
Mhm.
for it. But then we also talk about about other areas, like who are like real heroes, like contemporary heroes, not just Superman or Batman or whatever else, but like people who are heroes, or people that cause change. And how do they cause change? Because they figure things out that nobody else has figured out, or they're not afraid to stand up and say what everybody else has been afraid to say, or they stand up and they do something different, and something unique, and things like that. And so it's really cool to see students that they want to be videographers, or they want to I mean, we've got our fair share of kids that want to be doctors. Thank you, Dr. McStuffins.
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
or veterinarians, or things like
Mhm.
that. But then you also have students that, like, I have a student who's like, I want to work on computers. And I said, okay, well, what do you want to do? He's like, I want to create things. I want to build things on computers. And I'm like, okay. So how do we do that? What's that job look like? Who's somebody that does that? And these are conversations that we're having with 4 and 5 year olds, and who are going to change what they want to be, how many times before they grow up. Air
Mhm.
quotes. You know what I mean? Or they could stick with something from now until they are grown up.
Right.
But it's like providing them with the opportunities so that the door to the world is wide open to them, and that they have experiences in elementary school, but then also in secondary, school settings through middle school or high school, to continually engage. Um, and because those things lead to careers in STEM, or careers in technology.
Right.
You
Like
know.
we have to give them those strategies for them
Mm-hmm.
in order to be successful in the future. Like my fifth graders won't be here next year. You know what I'm saying? Like they go to middle school. That's a whole new realm. Now they'll be
Mm-hmm.
at the bottom.
Right.
Kind of. They'll be in sixth grade, lowest grade. They'll be at the bottom. They kind of have to start all over. So when you give them those strategies to make their voice heard, to make them not afraid to say how they feel in a respectable way, not
Mhm.
afraid to speak against everybody else if it's something that they don't believe in, it prepares them for the future if they want to be doctors, lawyers. Like I ask my fifth graders all the time because I'm like, y'all in fifth grade, you should know what you want to do, down the line, whether it changes or not. But a lot of them that I ask, they say basketball players. Well, they've said basketball
Right.
players, and I'm like, it can happen, as long as you don't break a leg, break an arm or something, those are your money.
Right.
Um, but I've asked them recently, and a lot of them have said, I want to be a basketball player, but I also want to be a businessman. So,
Mhm.
we're kind of changing, the thinking. Like, being a basketball player isn't a bad um, goal to look up to, and I would never take that away from anybody that wants to go
Mhm.
into professional sports because it can be done.
Right.
Um, but I always ask them, um, is that all you want to be? And some do say they think about doing something else, and I'm like, okay, you can do both, set aside
Right.
time because you won't play basketball all your life, you get old.
Right. There'll be a time where you have to stop, whether or
Right,
not you want to.
exactly. So, I try to have them think outside the box, not just basketball because this is what I like to play and this is just what I want to do for the rest of my life because you
Right.
can't do it for the rest of your life. So I do have them kind of think, beyond that. So they say, I want to go to college and get my degree, because then when basketball is over, they'll be able to teach. They'll be able to go into the corporate world. They'll
Right.
be able to do whatever they went to school necessarily for. So you just have to give them those strategies. In order to speak out, let their voice be heard. Let them know that whatever you say isn't wrong if it's what you feel. Because I think that's why a lot of people don't speak out either. They think that it's wrong because,
Right.
everybody else's viewpoint is so different. But we're all different. We look different. We speak different. We're just different, period.
Right.
So everybody has their own ways of thinking. And I don't think like my brother, even though we're related, we're two totally different people.
Right.
So just gotta have them realize, be confident in whatever you believe.
Right.
If
And
that's
who you
exactly
are.
what you feel, right? Be
Mhm.
confident in who you are. Be confident in what you put forth. Because if you're not, then nobody's gonna take you seriously as well. Like we can give them a voice, but if they're not confident, and it's like, why should I believe you? Or why should I take whatever you're saying seriously when you're not even convincing me that what you're saying is something that you truly believe in. So I think they have to have confidence as well as a voice to go behind it.
Mhm. Well, any other final comments?
Uh, I think we've touched on it all. I just had to like reread the questions, but
Yeah, that's what I'm doing too.
I think we've touched on it all though.
Yeah. All right. Let me grab this link and send it to you. All right. And it should be good to go. All right. Well, until next time.
All right, see you.
See ya.